Hi, my name is Barry Coombs. I'm part of the team here at Computer World. This just-in-time webinar has been put together to help give you some tips and tricks on how to best plan for the event of a disaster with regard to your IT systems in your business. Now, as an IT manager, IT architect, or even as a business owner, disaster planning is something that we know is important. But actually, in the small to medium-sized business space, it can be very difficult for us to have a solution in place that we can know that we trust is going to work in the event of a disaster. So I'm going to run you through some elements that we consider here at Computer World when planning a disaster recovery solution for some of our customers. Now, first of all, you've got to kind of stop and think, today, what would you doing? Before you review the rest of this video, what is your DRaaS solution? What does it look like? And for many businesses, for many smaller and medium-sized businesses, their DRaaS solution today will just simply be their backup solution. But actually, when we dig into it, even that backup solution might not be good enough for its intended purposes. We recommend that you have a 3-2-1 backup solution. That's 3 copies of your data on at least 2 different mediums and at least 1 copy kept off-site. And that will mean that if you have a total site disaster, you're able to get that copy off-site. If you have a failure of an array where the backups are being held, you're able to get a copy. And we want to be able to recover that data as quickly as possible. And the important thing for your backup solution is you're looking to hold many iterations of the data in a hierarchical nature, so grandfather, father, son. So if you need to be able to recover a file that may have been lost a longer time ago, or maybe there's been some changes inside of it, you're able to do that. Now, disaster recovery for most is a completely different scenario. What we're trying to do is minimize data loss. We want the point that we're going to recover the data from against where the data was lost or the downtime has occurred to be as small as possible. So disaster recovery often involves replicating the data to another location, to another site, or today in a more modern fashion to a cloud-based solution. So what we recommend you do is you start by looking at a service catalog. Now, a service catalog, as you'll see on screen, is a simple spreadsheet that you can go through and look at the services that the IT department provide to the rest of the business. Now, what I'd recommend is actually put yourself in your user's shoes. Consider if you were to ask that question to them, what would they say the service that you as the IT professionals were providing? Don't think about virtual machines or server names, think about the services that are used. So things like being able to log in, things like email, things like a CRM or ERP system, those services that are being consumed. Because by doing this, we're then able to relate that back to the business need. And it's imperative that you understand what the cost of downtime is for your business. This is a question that is very rarely able to be answered by a lot of people that I speak to. But if you don't understand what the cost is of downtime for an hour, 2 hours, 24 hours, a week, then it can be very difficult to create that business case to put the correct solution in place to provide the correct protection in the event of a disaster recovery. So with the service catalog, we're going to go through, we're going to look at all the services, we're going to look at the maximum downtime that we're able to tolerate with each of those services. And only when we've done that, we'll be looking to set values around what we call the RPO and the RTO. RPO being the recovery point objective, how much data can we afford to lose, and the RTO, the recovery time objective, how long it takes us to recover that data. And now, and a really, really important aspect, that your RTO includes the time it takes for you to make the decision as to has a disaster actually happened, to understand the process of recovery, to understand the process of going back to production again. There's a lot of different aspects that actually, when a disaster does occur, you need to make sure you've taken into consideration. So get that service catalog created, understand your maximum tolerable downtime and data loss, and then create realistic RPOs and RTOs. All too often I hear, well, we can't afford any downtime. Now, for most businesses, you can afford some downtime and some data loss. And obviously, the lower those figures get for most businesses, the higher your budget is going to need to be able to deliver that services. If it's something like manufacturing or healthcare, your recovery point objective and your recovery time objective both may need to be very, very low. And we may need to be doing something synchronously between 2 local data centers to be able to deliver that need. However, for most small to medium-sized businesses, we're able to tolerate more downtime, a couple of hours, 2, 3, 4 hours. Maybe we're able to tolerate an hour's data loss. What I recommend you do is create a tiered plan, gold, silver and bronze. With gold being the data that is imperative to your business, that we need back up as quickly as possible and we can lose the minimal amount of data. Going all the way down to bronze, which might be your test and dev machines. By organising all your VMs or your physical machines, all the services you're providing to the business into these gold, silver and bronze, we can make sure when we're looking at solutions, we're able to apportion those correct services to the correct type of solution. And that will mean we can best use your budget that is available to you. Now, the old way of providing disaster recovery was using tools like Double Take or other services to be able to replicate a physical or virtual machine from one set of infrastructure to another set of infrastructure. Now, that worked. It could be very, very reliable, but it had quite a high cost. You needed 2 sets of infrastructure. You needed to keep them updated and maintained. We needed the bandwidth available between those. Now, whilst that was good, whilst that worked, when the investment was there, we found a lot of people used second-hand or old infrastructure in their disaster recovery site. That meant it could be very, very difficult to stay on top of updates and patches. The hardware would become out of warranty. It may have already been 4 to 5 years old by the time it had gone to your DR site. So actually, is it able to keep up with the needs and the demands of a growing production site? This is all very difficult to keep on top of it. And the one piece of advice from my side that I'd really like you to take away is your disaster recovery solution is only as good as the last time you tested it. If you haven't tested your DR solution ever, and that is a large majority of people, how do you know it's going to work? How do you know the moment you get that phone call in the middle of the night because there's been a disaster in your workplace, how can you be confident you're going to be able to recover that environment? It's my preference to test DR as often as possible. I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving it past quarterly, ideally every other month or something like that. And we should be able to automate the ways of testing to minimize the amount of time that's required. But realistically, I see a lot of people that aren't really testing their DR solution. Now, you also need to understand what testing your DR solution looks like. It isn't the matter of recovering the virtual machines, ticking a box saying you've done it. We need to consider, actually, would the users be able to work inside this environment? Are there other pieces of software that may be required on client machines? Are there cloud services that we need to ensure we're integrating to? How are the users going to be consuming this service? So look at the way that you're going to do that DR test. Utilize things like VLANs on your network to be able to segregate traffic for tests. Most modern solutions will allow you to do a non-disruptive DR test while still protecting your data and allowing you to work in a production environment whilst the DR is being undertaken. Now, obviously, as we've moved forward, cloud-based solutions are now the primary way that we're looking to help our customers with disaster recovery. So DR as a service platforms based upon things like Azure or iland, we're able to utilize technologies like Zerto or Veeam to be able to replicate your virtual machines on a regular basis to make sure that you're able to fail over to a cloud-based solution in as small time as possible. Now, this has many advantages. One of those is you do not need to keep the lights on in a second data center. You don't need to pay a large managed service contract to someone that is going to run a cold environment to you that you may have done before. You can be a lot more flexible in this approach. You just need to worry about your virtual machines being replicating, how you're going to test this environment, and how you're going to know that it's working. And this is where the services from partners such as Computer World are able to really help you. We're able to monitor that DR service on a regular basis. We're able to do those DR tests for you or with you to make sure you're getting that piece of paper that's saying you've done your job, the protection is there. So there's many different aspects there that you can consider. Don't forget those cloud-based services. Just because you've put it in someone's cloud, ask them the question, how are they going to provide disaster recovery and high availability for you? So there's a number of different aspects. Have a look at your backup solution. Does it meet your requirements? Have you got a 3-2-1 backup strategy? In the event of a disaster, what would you do to recover your data? Have you got a service catalog in place to make sure you're meeting the company needs? And importantly, do you actually understand the cost of downtime? Review the ways that you're doing DR today. Have a look at how often you're doing the DR test. Are you keeping a secondary data center online with old kit or expensive hardware that actually the cloud could offer an interesting solution to you that make it a lot easier, a lot more fluid? And then really look at your disaster recovery plan and how you're doing that testing. Look at when the disaster does occur, what process will you need to go through to make sure that you can bring it online? And again, that's where Computer World Services can help, because we're able to fully document a disaster recovery plan for your technical solutions and also help integrate that with your business's DR plan for the rest of the business. So this has been a flyby webinar giving you some really important points. Highly recommend that you have a look at our DR as a service platform, have a look at Zerto and Veeam and what they can offer you, and speak to your Computer World account manager for more information. Thank you very much for joining me.